All right. Well, so nice to meet you. Yes, excited to get started.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for making time for this today, Hoda. And do you prefer Hoda or do you prefer Dr. Kalani? What do you prefer?
Hoda's fine. Hoda's fine. I
Okay,
work with
well,
the Arab world, and so I can charge more when I get clients from the Arab world. I don't know where you're located, but if you have any international background, when you have the doctorate degree, they can justify your fees.
yes, well, absolutely. And if there are people who are looking to engage with you after this, I will recommend they reach out and we can post a link to your profile here. And I know the work
But
you're
you,
doing is, oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, you can call me Hoda though during the interview. So feel free to do
Gotcha.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot, Hoda. I'm really glad that Bella recommended you for the podcast here. I had a wonderful chat with her a few weeks ago, and I'm excited to hear your insights and stories today. And we always like to start by asking, how did you get to where you are today? I think people learn a tremendous amount by hearing different people's career journeys. So maybe to kick this off, it would be wonderful to hear, how have you gotten to where you are today and what sort of stops have you made along the way?
Thank you so much, Imran, first for having me on your show. And second, it's a great question because I do believe that stories matter. And when we share our story, like you and I shared our stories before we started recording, it's all about really reflecting and continuously thinking, am I really where I want to be? And am I happy where I am right now?
Absolutely.
And so I was a stay-at-home mom for a very long time. I mean, before that, I used to work in the finance industry, but I was a stay-at-home mom, and my husband and I, we made that choice that somebody needs to stay home, take care of the kids. And during that, I got involved in the school system, the education system. So working to see what can be done and participate in the education system. This is where I came upon supporting the role of supporting students to fill out university applications.
Gotcha.
Get, yeah, so got to that point, it was like, okay, they don't know what they want to put on the university application. So we need to backtrack here a little bit and see what do you want to do before we start to fill out the university application. And that's how I got involved in the career development field. And now I have a private practice where I help students in that transition from the school and learning lifestyle to the working lifestyle.
Got it. Okay, that's a very interesting place to get started because I imagine you might have done a little of that for your own children as well, kind of guiding them on what they wanted to do.
Well, that's what it is. It started also with my children, and then, of course, the neighborhood children and
Yeah.
their friends at the school. And then I went back to university, got my doctorate of education, and also got a certified as a professional career coach. So always like built to it, and I do encourage lifelong learning. It's something that I do, and I encourage every person I come across.
That's amazing. And it's funny, it reminds me of my own parents in a way. My father started a martial arts academy when I was very young, and we were the first students, my brother, sister, and I, and our friends joined and so on. And we ended up doing a lot of learning together that way. And I know my father took that approach as well. So I think that's interesting that that's kind of where your career started. And immediately I wonder, Hoda, because I think a lot of students are in that position. You know, these turning points present themselves in our lives, and you kind of have to make this big decision, but there's always confusion around what to do. So, what were some of the steps you took to guide students, through applying to university? Were there questions you asked them, or how did you help them make a decision around where to apply or if to apply, maybe?
I like that you use the word if to apply because university education may not be for everyone. And that's something I stress with parents is that, yes, you're bringing your child to talk to me. You really need to be aware that it may not be the right decision for them.
Right.
That's very tough for many parents to accept. And then this idea of what to do after school is actually, I'm finding, a global thing. So it's not just in North America or Europe, but it's in the Arab world. It's everywhere where people get to finish school. And regardless of their socioeconomic status, they just like what do I do now? Like how do I go find what I need to do next? And the big question is always what next?
Yes.
And so I believe in the value of knowing who you are, what you like, where do you find yourself spending most of your time and why. And so one of the questions I was like ask young people is where do you find you lose track of time? And their answer can be something as simple as like hanging out with friends, at the mall or at the beach. And we just pull out why is it fun? Is it the social aspect of it? Is it the shopping? If you're at the mall in North
Sure.
America, is it the shopping aspect of it? So we dig deep into what they like to do. And I create a very simple assessment chart that anybody can take. And just by listening, even to us, I call it Discover Your Bevy, which is your beliefs, your experiences, abilities, values, and interests. And as you reflect on these, I've got like it is a chart, but the clients, when they come to me, they say, well, hold on, I don't like filling out charts. I hate, having to think about it. And some have come back with videos or essays. Like one young person, very creative and gifted, he wrote a poem about what he'd like to do with his life. And I'm like, you do know what you want to do? He's like, yes, this is it.
Is
So
writing the
it's
poem.
really, yeah. So it was a mix of writing the poetry and helping others. When we dug deep into the poem, he came out with how he likes to support others, whether it's animals or human beings. He likes to support others. So that's where we started flowing into what he wants to do next. Also, if some people, like their parents, say you have to get into medical school or law degree, I know I did that with my kids for a bit, but then I gave up as I studied myself and knew the after effects of forcing your child to do what you want to do. And it's really about going and experiencing it. So this one client, he wanted to get into pharmacy because his dad was a pharmacist. And I'm like, go spend the summer at the pharmacy. See what a pharmacist does, because do you even know what a pharmacist does? So he spent the summer with his dad, and he's like, oh, that's a very boring job. I don't want to be doing it. So it's all that process of really self reflection and getting to know yourself.
That's so helpful. And I want to make sure that I understood one part of what you said clearly here. So at the beginning, you were talking about um, asking students where do they lose track of time. And would you say that, if they said something like hanging out at the mall, then you would kind of go, hey, that's okay, but what is it about the mall? Is that what you were referring? Oh, that is so cool. I just wanted to make sure I had that right because I think that's such an easy entry point. And I could see a lot of students saying that. And then if you dig a little deeper, it's like, well, maybe it's not just any part of the mall. It's being at this store or that store or doing this thing. And that's it's such an interesting way to explore it, Hoda.
I love how you moved forward with the response. Is that you need to just keep narrowing down until you find
Right.
that one thing that clicks for you. Because I also had a young client, he just loved Star Wars, so watching the movies, playing the games, and all, and reading the books. So we had to dig deeper. What was it about Star Wars that really clicked for you?
Oh, that
And
is
yeah.
and what was it, if you don't mind me asking? Like, is that how did that break down into kind of ideas he might have used to figure out what he's going to do next? Because I know he's not the only one who likes Star Wars for sure.
Well, it will depend, of course, on every person, right? But for him, it was the social aspect and that being always with it on a team and going and doing stuff together. There was also the strategizing when it came to games, but with the books, it was like unraveling and solving. And believe it or not, he did get into politics eventually. So
That
but
is
it
so
was
cool.
because politics has that social aspect, has also that, you work as a team if you want to be elected as part of a member of a party.
Yeah,
So we pull out these bevies, as I like to call them, and start to think, okay, so where's that heading? So what do you want to be doing?
that is so cool because I think it really makes it it makes it part of a whole, I feel like sometimes the advice is, all right, well, Star Wars is for fun. So like put that aside. But instead your approach is more, okay, well, what is it about Star Wars or what is it about X, Y, and Z? And to get to, oh, it's that you want to be part of a team, that is really cool. And I think that must make a lot of job seekers feel excited about discovering, what they might want to do in school or what they might want to do as a job because they get to do something they're excited about instead of having to push the fun aside.
And you are so right. And that's really my approach to finding what I call the right fit for you, is because if you like what you're doing, we need to say, what do you like about it?
Right.
That's what it's that simple. Why do you like it?
Yeah.
And yes, people like love to read. Well, you can't find a job where you love to read because, for example, if you love to read, well, you can become an editor because you will right away pick up the grammatical mistakes, the spelling mistakes. These will always be picked up. That even no matter how much AI progresses,
Yeah.
there's still be those spelling mistakes that you need a human being to do.
Absolutely. And who knows how those worlds end up blending and how, future editors use AI in their own process. So it's just so I think reinvigorating to hear that something you enjoy can translate in part to what you end up doing. Um, Now, on the other side of that coin, you spoke about something that I know is difficult for students and for parents, and that is that, they might go, these young students who are deciding on university might go a different direction than a parent was expecting. And in that case, um, are you assisting the parents in kind of understanding that as well, or kind of equipping the students with things they can tell their parents to make it a little bit easier?
Such a great question. And yes, Imran. I do
Yeah,
talk to the parents because they are the one who are going to be responsible financially for the student until they either go to university or even to stand on their feet if they decide to take a job without going to university.
right.
But also I equip the young student to say to be feel confident about what they want to do. And any parent, myself included, if they find that their child knows what they're doing and confident in that, mom, this is what I want to do. I know I did it with my own child. And he wanted to go study. We're in Canada, so he wanted to go study in the US. And we were like, why would you go in Canada? It's like really quarter the price to go to university compared to the US as an international student.
Right.
But he made this template where he convinced me and his dad that da, 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 I'll even pay you guys after.
Oh,
So that's how
wow.
passionate he was about his degree. Like, I'll pay you the money back once I start my. So once we saw how passionate he is, we believed in what he was in his plan and supported him. So definitely there is that engagement with parents for me. But more importantly, I want the student to be comfortable and confident in his plan. Because if you tell me, oh, I just want to do, I don't know, data science because everyone else is doing it and they tell me I can make a lot of money.
Right.
Well, okay, this is where we step back and like, no. Or I just want to get into medicine because my parents think it's a great idea. And so well, in medicine, there are so many job opportunities. Like, it's not just a doctor anymore. I'm sure it could be in nursing, but it could be in labs. It could be public health. There's so many that you can still become a medical professional without becoming a doctor, that many students don't want to do because it's a big investment of many years studying. And
That's so true. And I think that reminds me of being a child as well. And I remember there were things I wanted as a a young child and having to convince my parents that, hey, it's a good idea to get this gaming system. And I did the Bristol board presentation as well. And it's funny how, even later in life, if you have that passion for something and can explain it, then, you know, everyone will get on board because they're like, okay, there's thought put behind this and there's a plan to this. So
I
I
love
have
your
a lot of respect for
example.
myself.
So yeah, I would love your
Oh,
example, Imran, because I want to build on that just a little bit.
yeah,
But
please
thank you
do.
so much for these examples. And that's what it is. Like, you're building a lifelong skills. If you can convince your parents of something, you're going to be able to convince your boss of something. Like when you go get a job, and that's where we transition as well. Where if there is a role that you think you can do today for an organization, make them money, and you can present your point and argue for it, you're gonna get that job. Whether they have an opening for it or not, whether they have money for it, they'll find the funds to bring you in if you can convince them that this is going to work. people will like you and will want to, they want to hear you speak.
I completely agree. I've seen that happen in my own life, and I think it's a very different approach than, please give me a job. And I completely understand, um, that mentality, especially not everyone's in, a relaxed position looking for work. Some are in, um, very time sensitive situations. So I understand that side of things, but I still think that if you go in the way you're saying with, hey, here's how I can help you do this, you're also asking for a job, but it's completely different. The approach is completely different. So
And
I really resonate
it's
with that.
so much better to spend in, time and invest time, like you're saying, trying to convince people, I can tell you how to do this, I can show you, rather than fill out 100 applications, which I'm sure you've heard stories of,
Oh
and
yeah.
you don't hear back, right?
Yeah, that's you're in that case, you're not putting that offering forward and you haven't done that research ahead of time to say, hey, I know what you're trying to do and I can help is very different than like, hey, do you want to give me something, which is the job in this case. So I think that's a really, really helpful approach. And I've heard of job seekers who've done that. They've put together mini proposals, they've put together samples of their work, and they are getting hired. And it just makes sense. Um,
And you, like, that, and I just want to find a way to get students to know that, and that's what I try to show them. And even one more example, I guess, for the audience as well, is one young person found a job that had two aspects to it. And he didn't want one aspect, but he was really good at the other. And so he went to the hiring manager and said, I want to focus on this. I'm willing to work part time to start to show you that I know what I'm doing. And sure enough, he got the role and then eventually became full time just for that specific role. So he was able to split a
oh,
role. And I mean, that because you've been working for some time now, right? But we need to kind of pass this on to the young people who are coming out of university or school, even, and thinking, oh, by the time I finish university, this role might be gone or that role might be gone. Is just get creative, get engaged in your career, and you can accomplish what you reach a job that you like.
well, you reminded me of one other example because you're right. I think it's important to let young students know this. Our company was part of one of these pitch competitions recently where we watched students pitch ideas to help our company and other companies. And in that same time frame, we were looking for someone to join our marketing team. So someone, with hopefully a degree with experience in marketing. And at the same time, we're at this pitch competition where there are, 16-year-old students presenting their marketing ideas. And one of the ideas was on how to use TikTok. And they explained some things to us in that pitch that I hadn't heard anyone in an interview explain and show us because they had gone to our profile and said, you're liking and following all these random people that don't have anything to do with your business. So it's going to skew the algorithm. And I was watching this 16-year-old explain to me, after I don't think they did more than a week of preparation. And I remember telling their teacher, I was like, look, when you do offer internships to your students, please let us know because we would take that student on as an intern. Um, and that's, while we're having professionals send in resumes and fill out forms. And it was the person who took the time to see what we did, make a suggestion. And it was a completely different approach. And I was so impressed. So I just completely agree, Hoda.
That's a powerful example. A 16-year-old can do it. And that's,
Yeah.
with the availability of technology and the right kind of education, they can.
Absolutely. And I wanted to ask something else about your pharmacy example. And that was, where you had this student who said, okay, they want to be a pharmacist. And you had this great recommendation around, well, go be at the pharmacy. So it's kind of a continuation of this line of thinking where if you want to be in the field and offer help or get exposure to it, I think in that case, it was this person's father, so they could kind of go there. Do you have suggestions for people who, they may not know someone in the field, but they want experience or they want to go see what it's like? Do you have any suggestions on how to do that?
That's a very important question. And it takes us to networking, which many young people say, I don't know, I don't want to do this,
Yeah,
right? Because
exactly.
if it's not a stated volunteer opportunity for you to come and volunteer, then you really have to do the networking. And part of the networking is just go talk to the pharmacist. Some people like, what, we get busy over the summer. Sure, I'll have you probably stocking the shelves, right, for free. But then you are in the environment. You are in the environment. You're not getting paid for it. You're stocking shelves all day, but you are watching the pharmacist, having an opportunity for conversations with them or her, and that will help you get to know. Now, people talk a lot about informational interviews. They're very, good and very productive, but in 1 hour you cannot really know. Like, I can talk to you for an hour about your work. I will not know it as well as if I go and drop shadow you for a day and see what does Imran do all day.
Yes,
Right?
that's so true. That's a great point. And I like, again, just it's a simple answer you've given us, Hoda. It's just go talk to the pharmacist. And I feel like, especially as a student, if you show that kind of interest, people are really receptive to that.
Yeah, yeah. And actually worked with a young girl who was very good at networking. And so I was like, what advice would you give to other? And she's like, just go ask. Many
Yeah.
people want to help. Just go ask. It was like a 14-year-old, very smart young lady. Just go ask. So she knew how to network, but she didn't know what she wanted to do because she was good on a lot of stuff. So, and then we helped her narrow it down. And again, so I get people like interested in two things. Nowadays, universities have what you call multidiscipline. So you don't have to get a degree in one thing. You can get a degree in two things. Like, I know I did my master's degree like that, where I focused on gifted education, but also on career education because I liked working with gifted, high IQ students. They were always challenging for me. And so I was able to get a degree that managed to group these two interests of mine together, and then get a. I work right now with gifted students, help them find their next steps. So there's always a way to blend two interests together, also, and come up with a degree. Also, if it's not multidisciplinary, it's like a major and a minor
Uh,
that people can do.
That's a great
Yeah.
reminder as well. It does feel like a singular decision, or at least it did for me early on. You have to pick something, one thing, but that's nice to remember that you can have a bit of a diverse experience and blend them together. And that actually reminded me of a question I wanted to ask you earlier, which was, you know, you kind of started doing career advising before you had formal training in it, which is actually fairly common. I hear quite a few career professionals that have done it that way. And I'm wondering for the career professionals watching this, what was one of the main differences that in your approach, after having gone through, education around this? Did you start doing anything differently based on some of the things you learned? When you compare it to how you were advising students before going through the schooling you did?
It confirmed a lot. I was always going with my gut feelings, like, I can help you do this, I can help you do this. But by studying the certificate, you get exposed to career theories, which are very cool because you can say, okay, so what I'm doing is based on research. It's not just something that I came up with and hey, this is it. So that's one thing. And then it's a very good reminder of the ethical procedures that everyone needs to be aware. And if you're only going to start your own business, and you want to do it all on your own, the certificate also provides you contracts to write, like how to write contracts for your business, what to include, what to be aware of, how to start a small business. So the course I took was very good that way. The certification I took was very good in that it also incorporated the small business because that's what I wanted to be doing. My husband and I, we both love to travel. So I wanted to take on a role that I can travel and work at the same time back when this was not a thing before COVID. That was about 11 years ago now. And so I figured if I can get a work, virtual work, because many young people were open back then. We used Skype and there was another one, conference calls or something it's called. So young people were willing to meet with me online back then, 11 years ago. And that's how it all started. That's why I wanted my small business because I didn't want an employer to say, no, you have to come to the office 3, 5 times a week. And yeah,
That's
so definitely recommend it, if particularly if you want to start your own business.
that's very helpful to know. And I do know there are other very ambitious career development practitioners out there who have thought of, trying to start a business of their own. And some of them I've met are, they're in Germany or they're in Dubai and they're not sure what to do. Um, and that's for anyone starting a new business. So it's helpful to know that the education can kind of just give you a framework to work from. And I think also bring you into this network of people that somehow seems to know each other, like Bella, for instance. So maybe we'll have to have you on for another episode, Hoda, to share some insights on what it's like running this company of yours. But I know that's all the time I asked you for today. So I just want to say thank you for providing these insights and some of these stories that I really hope resonate with other students, and encourage them to just ask, for these opportunities. Um, but is there anything else that you would like to add before we kind of wrap this episode up? Any sort of final advice or tips that you'd like to share?
Well, I do want to share a plea. I am on a mission to increase awareness about the value of career education. I like to call it career literacy. Anyone listening who wants to work with me on increasing career literacy, ensuring career literacy becomes a core topic in the education system, reach out. And I also want to thank you, Imran, for doing this podcast. It's a great program, and just wish you the best of luck, Imran.
Oh, thank you so much. And you just reminded me something as well. If people want to learn more about Right Career Fit, is that the correct? Yeah, what's the best way to learn more about it and learn about how to work with you?
Well, I do have a website, rightcareerfit.com, but I'm also on social media everywhere. I have a virtual assistant who's great in passing you on to me real quickly. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, any I'm on social media.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll make sure to include that in the link for those of you who want to learn more about what Hoda does and connect with her. And thank you for the kind words. I'm glad we had you on today, Hoda. Really appreciate the time and hope you have an awesome weekend ahead of you.
Thanks, Imran.